Hey everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the But to Speak podcast on Couch. Today we have quite an interesting subject and a subject quite close to my heart, which is the Student Council, more commonly referred to as the BATSP. So if during the podcast you hear me call the Student Council BATSP, just know that it's the Student Council. So probably many of you will have the question, what even is the Student Council and what it does? It's a place where everyone has the opportunity to develop their skills, gain a lot of experience, as well as to get to know a lot of cool people, meet some new friends. Of course, these friends that you will be making and all of these contacts that you will be making are your fellow students who study here at Turība University. Some of the most interesting and exciting memories of the university years come from you being involved in BATSP. So personally, I have been a part of BATSP for almost 2 years now. I started as a Padome member that I will speak a little bit about a tad bit later in this podcast. And I have been the head of the International Cooperation Department for 1.5 years now, and it's been one of the best experiences I've had here in Turība. So before we move on to explaining more specific things about the Student Council, in general, what we do is we organize events for students. BATSP gives you both practical experiences and also just a whole lot of knowledge that you can use during your 4 years or more of studies. And of course, it leaves a lifelong impact on you, and you gain so much that you can use after you finish your studies, that you can use on later on in life, during your work, during your maybe other studies, and stuff like that. So I think we can move on to Padome now. So what is it? It's the highest decision-making body of BATSP, and it consists of 30 elected representatives of students. These students can be pretty much everyone. These can be Latvian students, these can be English students, international students. You don't even have to be a part of BATSP to become a Padome member. Padome decides on the functioning of the BATSP organization, and it is very involved with all of the changes and developments that are made in the internal environment. Changes in the bylaw, organization structure, approval of different financial statements, and etc. Now, one of the most important tasks for the Padome is to elect the BATSP board and the student representatives to BAT decision-making bodies, which we will speak about a bit later as well. And these decision-making bodies and the board are the basis for the organization's activities and for the successful representation of the interests of our university students. So now that we have talked about the Padome, we can move on to the board, which is the executive power of BATSP. It is responsible for the successful organization of the work of the organization and its individual parts, as well as for the successful execution and implementation of Padome decisions and its assigned tasks. So there are 8 people in total who represent the board. They change each and every year. Now, one of the most important people of the board is, of course, the president. Each of the tasks and functions that the president does is considered a primary one, because the president represents the image of the Padome and the board and constantly takes care of it. One of the primary things that the president does is maintain the work of Padome and the board, which should include supervision so that the work progresses, that deadlines are not delayed, and making sure that the goal is achieved and everything is done in the best of its sense. Of course, the president wouldn't be able to achieve everything without the help of a vice president. Vice President's primary duty is to maintain the internal climate of the Student Council, specifically the board. The Vice President has to make sure that all of the board members aren't having any issues between themselves and that work is progressing. The Vice President is also responsible for resolving any internal conflicts. The Vice President also maintains excellent conditions for quality work. The Vice President also has to follow all of the documentation, its timely and correct submission. The Vice President also makes sure that the council meetings are interesting and that everyone feels valued in their own positions. The Vice President also often involves guest lecturers and organizes different activities both for the board and Padome. The Vice President is, of course, the right hand of the President and is always available to help with anything that the President might need help with. Now, next we have the Marketing Department, which is arguably one of the most important departments that we have in Bataspi. The Marketing Department is responsible for ensuring availability of high quality and visible up-to-date information for all students. Of course, the Bataspi also has its own website. We have both an English one and a Latvian one, and the department is responsible for its management. And of course, finally, one of the most interesting things that the Marketing Department does is creating a lot of videos, photo materials, reflecting on the course of events. The next department that we have on our hand is the International Cooperation Department. This department ensures integration and involvement of foreign students in the university's life and the Latvian environment in general. The department organizes receptions, farewells, parties, and everything in between to unite foreign students and Latvian students of the university. Of course, the department also promotes the improvement of our university's environment to facilitate the stay of international students. For example, having instructions, menus, and event information available in English for all students. Now, next we have the Sponsorship Department. Of course, as the name suggests, this department is responsible for involving sponsors and supporters in all of our projects that we organize here in Bataspi. It also creates and keeps a database of our sponsors and supporters so that we may interact with them in the future for our future endeavors and events. As well as it maintains communication with all of our longtime sponsors. So if you ever come to any Bataspi events and you win some prizes, so if in the future you have the opportunity to participate in some sort of Bataspi events and you manage to win some prizes, just know that the Sponsorship Department is responsible for getting you those gifts. As the Student Council of Turība, we also have to communicate and interact with other student councils from other universities. For this, we have our External Communication Department. One of the main tasks for the External Communication Department is to inform the student council members about current events and events organized by other universities and their student councils. And of course, they organize their own events in cooperation with other student councils and universities. The External Communication Department is quite well known for organizing a lot of different charity events throughout the year. Now, two of the biggest events that they organize when it comes to charities are as follows. The first one is in cooperation with the animal shelter Ulubele, where once a year students from Turība University and students from other universities as well can apply and go spend the day at Ulubele doing a bunch of necessary work that they need, take care of some pets, go for walks, and just have a fun time with the animals in general. And the second charity aims to help children with disabilities. Now, how you can help? You can donate a lot of clothes and toys that you think would be fun for children to play with, as well as you can apply to go ahead and visit the children as well. Have a fun day with them, play around with them, educate them, maybe read some books and do other fun activities, and just spend a fun day with the children. Okay, let's move on. Now, one of our biggest departments would be the Sports and Culture Department, which organizes sports, entertainment, and cultural events for all students of Turība University. Some of the biggest events that this department organizes are as follows. First of all, we have Folkši, which is a ceremonial event for first-year Latvian students where they get to do a lot of fun activities. They get to know the campus. It also works as a little bit of an orientation game at the same time. And they just have a fun time in general. And by the end of it, the first-year students have the opportunity to go and swim in our Turība fountain. Then as follows is probably one of the biggest events that we have is the Christmas ball. Then the Sports and Culture Department also organize different volleyball tournaments between universities. You can find all of these events and many, many more all in our Turība website. So be sure to check it out. Of course, this department also promotes the creation of new Turība University sports activities and improvement of existing sports activities. For example, like volleyball, cricket, and of course, basketball. And in cooperation with the marketing department, they create amazing marketing campaigns for all of the organized events. Now, finally, but definitely not least, we have the academic department. The most important duty of this department is to ensure the quality of studies, to provide questionnaires, to provide opportunities to join focus groups where you can talk about your studies and your life in Turība. The academic department also is responsible for representation of the students' interests by ensuring that representatives are elected in decision-making bodies. The decision-making bodies that we do have here in Turība, and that even you can be elected in as a representative of student interests, are as follows. We have the Senate, the Constitutional Assembly, the Academic Arbitration, and we have also two informative ones, which are the Faculty Councils and the Study Direction Councils. I know this department doesn't sound maybe as interesting as the others because it includes a lot of official stuff. However, I can assure you that the academic department also organizes a bunch of fun projects as well, like for example, this podcast. The academic department is also responsible for the students' social life. That is why they organize a bunch of fun events like game night and also fun guest lectures where you can express yourself quite creatively. So guys, thank you all for listening to this episode of the On Couch podcast. If any of the information that we spoke about during this episode might interest you, you are more than welcome to check out our student council's Instagram, Facebook, and most importantly, our webpage, where you can also find our Flickr gallery, where you might be able to check out a bunch of different photos from all kinds of events. As well as be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel of this podcast, and I hope to see you during our next episodes. See ya!